Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka is Africa's most acclaimed author and arguably its most outspoken. I sat down with him to discuss Nigeria's elections, the Boko Haram insurgency, and his expectations for the new government. You mentioned in a recent interview that this was the most vicious, violent, vulgar, and unprincipled election exercise that you'd ever witnessed. Why did you make that comment, and do you still stand by that view?
Countdown to election was really very nasty. It was nasty, the method of campaigning, the language of campaigning, the personalization of what should be issues. You know, the core of elections should be issues. Issues, what Nigerians want, what the electorate expect, what candidates want to deliver. Instead, all we had was really low down ad hominem kind of bastardization of the entire process. And I said that the guiltier party was in fact the incumbent, the presidency, and which was a great pity. Then there was violence. There was violence, there were killings, there was a disrespect of what I consider the norms of civilized campaigning. However, what people are praising so far, I believe, is that the violence was less than expected, and that this was facilitated by the pragmatism and also integrity displayed by the loser, who was President Jonathan. Many people expected that no matter which way the election went, there would be really serious violence, and of a kind that was demonstrated, that could have been initiated by that unelderly man called Elder Urubebe on the floor of the final declaration. So it was that kind of scenario which had been expected, and what a relief it was to the nation and to the world that it did not happen.
What's your reaction to the conduct of President Goodluck Jonathan? He's being hailed as Nigeria's hero right now.
Well, when fears have been expressed, when you had a situation when people, and this is a fact, I had friends who said they were not going to be around for the elections because they expected the nation to go up in flames. When you have that kind of situation, and the act, the principled act of one individual just nullifies all the fears, anxieties. Are you surprised that Nigerians should hail that individual as a hero? He performed a heroic act. Whether we can call him a hero or not, or a statesman, as some people have designated him or not, that's another matter. What nobody can take away from him was that was a very dignified and responsible act. This was Jonathan's finest moment, and that is something he can take with him to his grave whenever that takes place.
Do you link the result of these elections to Nigerians wanting change, or is this really more about the election process being free, fair, and credible this time around?
Well, let's first of all get it quite clear that the elections are not necessarily, that we're not yet high and dry. There will be protestations, senatorial seats will be contested, and that's the way it should be. Assembly seats will be contested, results will be contested. What is certain, however, is that the pinnacle of situation is settled because the incumbent, the contestant, has conceded to the other. Now, does it mean that we've turned a leaf? We've said this before, we've turned a new leaf. We've said this before. We had a very sober, focused, determined, and quite respectable. By that I mean, they should have said, a contest of mutual respect in the MKO Abiola election. People are beginning to push that aside as if it never happened. Maybe they do that because it should be surprising and a shame to Nigerians that after that example of self-discipline, of concentration of issues, so have we finally turned a new leaf in our approach to campaigns, to the democratic exercise? We have to wait and see.
Do you think we'll ever get to the point in Nigeria where our politics and our voting patterns are not based on tribe or religion?
Well, I'm hopeful. I'll tell you why. Religion has never been absent as a factor in the determination of leadership in this country at several levels, especially with a kind of growing dependency on something called quota system. So you have quota system by region, you have quota system by religion. If somebody is governor, it's become standard that the deputy, is Christian, the deputy should be Muslim. If it's a man, it should be a woman. There's this quota mentality, which I can understand, but I think it's a great pity because we're losing quality, capabilities for what I call tokenism, the quota philosophy, if you can even call it that. Religion, however, has been one of the most perniciously dominant because religious sensibilities have been very unscrupulously evoked for electoral victories, very in a most unprincipled way, with short sight, because the ultimate consequences of elevating religion to the top consideration in getting fellowship is a very dangerous, blasphemous, and irresponsible one. But the reason, in spite of all I've said, well, I'm hopeful, is that I hope some people have learned their lesson. Because each time you say, look at those unbelievers, look at those infidels, look at those impious characters, along may come a force which says, oh, look at who's talking. They say they are pure, they're doing this. They're not sufficiently Christian, they're not sufficiently Buddhist, they're not sufficiently Muslim. And that is how it is possible for phenomena like Boko Haram to now treat everybody else as enemies. And so those who've been utilizing religion, manipulating religious sensibilities, I hope now they understand that, yes, the others are enemies because they are not Muslims. Along could come another group of believers who say, you think you are holy, we say you are impure, and we say we are the pure people. And therefore we have a right to kill you, we have a right to maim you, we have a right to kidnap your children, to desecrate your altars, and so on and so forth. And so people, I hope, in Nigeria, ironically and in a very pitiful way, would have learned a lesson from Boko Haram. Don't touch religion, don't elevate religion to an ascendancy which sets one section of the nation against another. Otherwise, other people will come and they will say, you yourself, you are number one enemies. Boko Haram, as you know, I've used the expression that the mixture of politics and religion is a toxic brew, a toxic, really poisonous brew. And Boko Haram was not just a religious issue. It was the manipulation of religion to the nth.
There are also allegations that the group within the central bank is sponsoring Boko Haram. Can you comment on that?
Yes, the Nigerians were sponsoring Boko Haram. Some politicians sponsored Boko Haram.
The central bank?
The central bank? Oh, one of the money people, and I'm very glad you raised this. It's an opportunity for me to say that this was not Sanusi at all, the present emir of Kano. No, because he was a short while before in the chairman of Central Bank, many people thought I was referring to him. No, this fellow whose name has been sent by Mr. Davis to the president, he was in Central Bank. I'm not sure he still is there now, but he was the launderer, the money launderer for Boko Haram at the time. These facts are with the security services. And I'm waiting to see who will have the courage to grab those people, because the record is there, the names are there.
Many Nigerians are hopeful that Muhammadu Buhari, being an ex-military man, would be able to handle the Boko Haram insurgency in a better way than the present administration. Are you optimistic about this?
No, I don't distinguish in such matters between civilian headship and an ex-military headship, because the military is an agency of state. It depends how it is directed. The person at the top does not have to be of military experience. It's useful for him to have had military experience, any more than a president has to be an economist, a medical genius, an architect. For me, the army is just another arm of the state. It's the will, the creativity, the commitment, sense of timing of the person who heads an organism like a nation, which really counts. He knows where to go for help.
Some people are of the opinion that the government should handle the Boko Haram members the same way the Yaradua government handled the Niger Delta militants. Do you agree with that?
People were very, very limited in their knowledge of religious fundamentalism, which always shocked me. Because how could intelligent people ever have said that Boko Haram should be treated the way the militants in the Delta were treated? It means they have absolutely no sense of history. Every single insurgency is different from another. Even the various movements which say they are pursuing the same cause, they are all different. Look at Syria today. Look at Syria. Look at all the various bodies which are there. Some say they just wanted to overthrow the government in Syria. But look at all the various opportunists who are there. Not all of them share their methodology. Not all of them want to turn Syria into an Islamized, fundamentalist state. No. Some are pure democrats. Some are libertarians. And the others are just adventurists.
Recently, you described President Goodluck Jonathan and Muhammadu Buhari as problematic candidates. Do you stand by your word, and why?
Yeah, by problematic candidate, I wasn't talking about his capability, I beg your pardon. I was talking about his history, his background, his record, his human rights record, his relationship with the rest of society, his outlook on society. These are issues which I have raised before, and I would prefer not to discuss them now, because he has shown willing to reform his approach to governance. And I think he should be encouraged to make that, to complete the cause of that internal reformation within himself. Situation changes all the time. If situations change, human beings also can change. And I believe I have seen enough signs to conclude that General Buhari knows that he has he's wronged the civil population and that he's willing to make amends. Let's just put it that way. I've described it sometimes as a leap of faith which is demanded in the circumstances, and I'm willing to live with that judgment. And I believe that that judgment is sound.
Many remember Buhari's rule in the 1980s as a time when corrupt politicians and businessmen were convicted and jailed. Do you think he will take that stance against corruption?
Let me say, by the way, that ironically, I find myself taking a harder line than Buhari's pronouncements during election campaign, which is ironic. I don't believe that any single corrupt individual should be allowed to go scot-free. So when he says, I will not probe this, I will not probe this, I don't believe in vindictive probing. And I believe very much in the rule of law. There are laws about corrupt people. All I want to hear and to see from Buhari is that I am going to allow the law to take its course. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear promises like, I'm not going to probe this. If it is necessary to probe, probe. If it is necessary for individuals to make restitution, force them to make restitution along the path of the law. If it is necessary to make an example, to make examples, yes, make examples. Because this nation has been robbed, has been raped. There's no other word for it. This nation has been raped. And this has been a continuing pattern. It's about time that drastic measures are taken to put a stop to this impunity, this culture of impunity that is transmitted from generation to generation, a culture of impunity that encourages people, gives them the nerve to accuse those who accuse them, to turn around and even accuse those of crimes which they have been accused of. I mean, the impunity has reached such a level that people blatantly just say, they just slander, they embark on a career of calumny just to shut people up. I know I'm speaking feelingly, and I think such people should be dealt with. It's not enough that you go to court and you win whatever it is, which has happened, you know, I sue and I get court judgment, but you slander, you libel, not just your accusers, you tackle their families, you slander their families, their wives, their children, you tackle them just to make them tired and give up. Well, such people deserve to be punished and made examples of criminally.
Now, if you were to advise Muhammad Buhari, what would you say should be his priority in his first 6 months in power?
Priority, I'm not going to say that. The reason is this: Nigerians are very impatient people, and I don't blame them. You know, they have been abused, deprived for so long that they expect miracles. If I mention a priority, they look as if I'm saying, do it tomorrow. But if it's understood, what kind of priority would I like? On a personal, subjective level, I like to see power, the issue of power, addressed frontally. In fact, an emergency, maybe situation should be declared in the Department of Power, for the simple reason that we cannot progress. We cannot develop without power. We're living in a modern world, not in the age of, you know, oxen-pulled plows and so on. Everything is mechanized, technology, etc., etc. So it's for that reason that I'm prejudiced. And maybe also because I'm tired of paying for diesel. So Buhari, please help me. Something which, so many things which Jonathan failed to do, which he should have done. And the main problem was that he surrounded himself with some really third-rate people, some of them crooks, criminals, who should be in jail to start with. So I don't even know where to begin. And so in their various departments, they failed him, they failed the nation, but ultimately, it's the president who must carry the responsibility for that. The can, he must carry the can. One thing about Buhari is that he's a straight person. And if he said, I will do this, I believe he will do it.
Back to the elections, there were reports of technical glitches in the process. So I'd like to get your assessment of INEC and its chairman, Atahiru Jega.
The approach of Jega to this election was very complicated. I believe that it could have been made less complicated. Beyond that, I don't want to, first, okay, just example, I think it's, and Abdul Salami, General Abdul Salami also mentioned this. Why this separation of accreditation and voting? when the two can be brought together. So there are little things like that here and there. But altogether, I give Jega a good pass mark.
This election is said to be the most expensive in African history, with millions of dollars spent on campaigns. I believe you recently referred to this election process as a money election.
I know I expect money to be spent. There's no election in the world, even the former communist world, where money was not spent on elections. But there is what you might call a critical mass of spending, where things become obscene. And you wonder if this amount of money is being spent for an election, what on earth is going to be left to run the country afterwards? And those who contribute these vast sums, what are they going to get in return? Because I do not believe that this kind of donation is totally altruistic. Very few people have the means or are capable of just saying, I believe in your cause. I believe if you get in power, you will transform this country. This is my contribution. Do what you want with it, and good luck. Very few people exist to do that. So this money is coming from somewhere, and there must be returns expected by those donors. That's my worry about it. I mean, this really was extravagant, and there was open inducement, open bribery. Naira, dollars, the lot. You know what happened.
Is true change in Nigeria really down to choosing the right leader? Or would you say that this is more about the mindset of the people?
The mindset has got to take place. Nigerians themselves, followership sometimes is the problem. There's no question, we talk about leadership, but Nigerians have become so cynical, so grasping, I'm sorry to say this, they've reached the level of what's in it for me. And that is a very dangerous trend. So the change we're talking about is not merely change in structures, change in governance approach. It's not just change in leadership mentality. It's also change in people, in people's mind. How that's going to be brought about, I don't know. A religion, perhaps religious bodies will take a role in it. Sociologists, psychologists, even philosophers have a role to play in this, and teachers in particular, yes.
What are your expectations for the upcoming gubernatorial elections?
I think the trend we've seen so far will be maintained, that people are so excited about the possibility of change, not change for its own sake, but change in which they identify true performers. Otherwise, why have so many people lost their seats in the Assembly, in Senate? The change for new blood in governance is real, and I believe that this will be reflected in the coming elections.
If you had a crystal ball and could look into the future, what would Nigeria 10 years from now look like?
That's a very difficult one. All I know, however, is that the issue of power would have been resolved. Cheap transportation, such as railway, development of waterways, would have really reached new efficient heights. I believe that in terms of structural enhancement of society, there'll be such competition among the states. It started already among the states. One state looks at another and says, wait a minute, I can do better than this. There'll be a greater sense of leaving genuine legacies behind, not just cosmetic, because Nigerians are not fools. They learn to distinguish between false development and genuine and sustainable development. They ask questions. The media, Nigerian media, remains one of the most virile, most fearless, and this also will continue to ginger people to utilize that platform to keep their leaders, their rulers in line. So we'll see a far more sophisticated, politically sophisticated society, and And certainly, in 10 years' time, the word expression Boko Haram, people, when they hear, say, Boko Haram, what's that? Boko Haram, what? I believe that in 10 years' time, we would have succeeded in eliminating fundamentalist threats to social cohesion.
That was Wole Soyinka sharing his view on Nigeria's political scene. Thank you for watching. I am Didi Akinyelure, CNBC Africa.